I think expectations were, it's a fast way to make money, and you look up at all these alumni, the people who are successful, the ones driving the nice cars with the big bankrolls and stuff. And you're like, oh shit, they must be happy, right? Yeah. There must be something to this real estate thing or this finance thing that people find passion in. I just never got that passion, like it wasn't, for me, it wasn't like I wasn't helping anybody, it was hard and I was working long hours, but like I wasn't really challenging myself or growing as an individual. So it was an easy decision for me to say to Jordan, like, hey man, I'm going to leave what I'm doing to come join you. The money here isn't worth it for me, and I walked away from a big salary for nothing. We didn't pay ourselves at Super Coffee for the first 2.5 years. I'll send you guys a picture after this. I was literally the Bud Light guy at Baltimore Ravens games.
No way.
Yeah. It's $8 beers. I was the guy with the thing on my shoulder, but I'd make like $400 a game and that would pay for my week.
And welcome to the One Shot Podcast. We are here with Super Coffee CEO, Jim. Tyler, don't correct me here because you were wrong. It's Jim DeCicco.
It is DeCicco, huh? So
yes,
my wife's
sir.
Italian, and she for sure would say DeCicco.
See, that's what I said the first time. Yeah.
That's right. They call it DeCicco in Italy, but somewhere along the way it turned into DeCicco.
That's right.
Okay, all right. You went full Texas on it then, huh?
That's right.
I love it.
And to introduce him a little bit better, I got a short story. Back when I was starting in commercial real estate about 5 years ago, I'd never drank coffee before. Coffee just wasn't my thing. But when you get into the corporate world, you start to realize, everybody does it, number one, and number two, you start to need the stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was looking for something, I've always been a health freak, a health nut into fitness. I was looking for something healthy. It's easy to run down to Starbucks and get yourself a 700 calorie, coffee drink. And so I was just looking and I found this stuff called Super Coffee. And again, like we said, CEO here with us, Jim DeCicco. And man, this stuff is incredible. Not only does it taste good, but it's got protein, which any meathead loves.
Yeah.
It's got MCT oil. So it's got everything you want in a perfectly healthy, nice bottle called Super Coffee.
Yeah, and I remember the day when you found Super Coffee. Holy shit.
I became your biggest disciple.
I mean, all he could do was talk about, because he never drank. He's right. He's never drank coffee. It just wasn't his thing. And he found Super Coffee. And he says, hey, he called me up and asked me, have you ever heard of Super Coffee? And I was like, no. So we ended up getting stocked up here. Yep. And Tyler and I, we'll banging around here and there, man. But absolutely, man. We just, not only do we love the coffee, man, but we want to hear your story on how you got to where you guys are today. So Jimmy, take us back on a journey, unless Tyler, you want to do this.
No, I was just going to say, how did you start to like getting Ben to stop drinking orange mocha frappuccinos? That's what I want to know, is the in-between there.
That's the real miracle here.
Yeah.
No, but like Darren said, take us back, Jimmy. Take us back to the beginning. We want to hear your personal story. Obviously, we want to hear the story about the company, but take us back to your beginning. Where did you start? Where did you grow up? What was family life like?
Yeah, for sure. And grateful to be here, fellas. Thank you for having me. So I'm the oldest of three boys, and my brothers and I started the company 6 years ago. Before that, we grew up in Kingston, New York, about 2 hours north of New York City. Mom and dad both played sports in college. Mom was lacrosse and soccer at New Hampshire. Dad was a linebacker up there. Right after they graduated in May of 92. They had me in October of 92. So they had three boys by the time they were 25, and we always joke about it. The way they raised their family was kind of like how we're raising the business. You're figuring it out as you go. And they did a nice job getting us into sports, sort of teaching us to work hard and be nice to people from an early age. And I think that background in athletics and that impression that our parents left on us through sports and how to compete, how to be a teammate, how to communicate with your team is really what empowered us to do what we do today. Fast forward to college, my brothers and I weren't great students. I played football at Colgate University. Jake played football at Georgetown, and Jordan played basketball at Philly U. Jordan had an old school coach. Like, this guy had them running suicides at 5 a.m. and he had to wake up. The kid was tired, and he didn't want to drink a Starbucks Frappuccino that had 46 grams of sugar in it. And so he started brewing coffee with MCT oil, giving himself the fuel that he needed, adding protein, right? Because like you said, what meathead wouldn't like some protein? And it worked for him, man. And he had never had any intentions of starting a business, right? This dude's dream was to be the next Steve Nash. Like he was the starting point guard, full scholarship kid his freshman year. He used to skip high school to go shoot free throws at the YMCA. So I always thought that basketball was his life, which it was, until he saw this opportunity in coffee. He's like, man, bottled coffee is a $2.5 billion market. The Starbucks Frappuccino controls 90% of it. It's all just coffee with milk and sugar. Nobody's doing anything better. It's like, this solution works so well for me. There's millions of people who face the same problem, right? This product, I mean, Ben, you said it at the beginning, right? This is exactly what you wanted. You just didn't know you wanted it. So Jordan ended up dropping out of school, heading into his sophomore year, called me up and my middle brother, Jake, and said, fellas, we got a big opportunity here. Just want to let you know what I'm working on. At the time, I was a financial analyst at a real estate firm up in New York, and I left my job to join him. It was supposed to be temporary. I was supposed to just go in there for 3 to 6 months and make sure that my little brother wasn't messing his life up. Now 6 years later, we're still here, man. Today we're 135 full-time employees across the country. Third largest bottled coffee in the U.S. right now, behind Starbucks and Dunkin'.
Yeah, man. That was, first of all, that was an unbelievable overview of your life story. I think you've done this before. Number one, we want to get a little more granular. We want to get a little bit more detailed, and again, specifically about you, because CEO is a ridiculously challenging, demanding job, and it takes a certain personality in most cases. And so I want to understand, what was your personality like as a kid? Did you all, because we hear a lot of these entrepreneurs, they said, man, I was selling baseball cards at 8. I was doing, this and that. Was that you as a kid? Were you the entrepreneur type as a kid?
Man, it's funny. I'm of the three of us, I'm not the entrepreneur. I'm more of the leader, to make sure that we got the right people in the right places, the right teammates working towards the right things. As the oldest brother, I sort of took on some of that burden of raising Jake and Jordan too. When my mom was working or my dad was doing his thing, getting a little personal here, and my old man doesn't mind, because there's lessons in his story, but he banged his head a lot playing college football, and coming up as a kid, he wasn't always able to get to work, wasn't always able to get out of bed. And I mean, you guys all see teammates and classmates and coaches who deal with this shit. He's doing better now. He's in a much healthier place, but I kind of took some responsibility at a young age to say, hey, Mom, I'm going to help you. Jake and Jordan, let's go. We're going to get this thing going in the right direction. So yeah, I think that leadership was always in me. I was always the captain of my teams, trying to be the president of the class type role. There you go. And that was something that sort of lent its way naturally to I guess, my personality. And then at Colgate, I was an athlete. I was a quarterback in high school. When I got to Colgate, I played 1 week. I was in the wide receivers meeting rooms. The next week I was in the running backs. The next week I was returning kicks. So I was a little bit of everything. And that experience, that general experience, sort of empowered me to do what I do today, because I'm not a specialist at anything, man. I got to know a little bit of finance, a little bit of marketing, a little bit of sales. And that's, I think my background coming up really got me ready to do what I do today.
So go back.
I was going to say, I love that, because I was similar in my journey. As I was a quarterback in high school. I went, got my hand down in the dirt. I was a DN in college, but I was always kind of labeled this like jack of all trades, right? You do all these things, and there was like a negative connotation to, oh yeah, jack of all trades, master of none. And there's this whole thing on Instagram going around. It's like, but the whole thing is really, jack of all trades, master of none, but better than a master of one.
Right.
So the whole deal is in the experience that you get being multifaceted, right? And okay, hey, I can connect with the receiver room, because the receiver room and, the quarterback room is very different, like very different personalities, very different retention, very different ways to teach. So the fact that you can actually move from room to room is a strength, I think, and is a very important tool I'm sure you picked up on your way to being a CEO. Yeah.
We'll get back to the story in a second. I actually want to pull on this thread a little bit, because there's that concept of, do you try to do everything and not really master anything, or do you just go one lane focus and this is all I know and this is what I do? I guess there's advantages to both. And it sounds like you gravitate more towards, you appreciate that you had all those skill sets and all those skill levels that you had to develop.
Yeah, yeah, and growing up, we played every sport. I wasn't just a football player. Like my parents wanted us to be involved and be active. I think in college, Tyler, to your point, I mean, it was frustrating, man. I wanted an identity. I wanted to belong in one of those rooms, and every week, depending on who we were playing, I didn't know what room I was going to be in, and I never really got to hone in on my skill set. I never became great at running back because I didn't. One week I was a wide receiver, and the next I was back doing a wildcat quarterback. So once I got over that and really appreciated this sort of range of skills and the ability to be flexible, that's what life is, we face different problems and the business calls for different solutions from me every single day. And I'm grateful to be able to span that range.
Yeah.
So let's go back, man. You mentioned your father, and your father had some injuries that he occurred through college football and whatnot. Talk to us about those dynamics, man. Was there a lot of pain that went through this? Because you said you had to step up, and I know you rushed over it, but did you have to incur a lot of pain through that process of your father's? Now I got to step up, I got to grow up early on, and be the leader within the family, knowing that your father was going through some issues. Yeah,
it didn't feel like pain back then, because it was our dad. That's all we knew. Yeah. For all we knew, that's what dads were like. I didn't know any different. And he was a great dad. He still is. Like he took us to practice. He showed up at every game. If we needed cleats, he got us cleats. Right. Like we didn't have a lot, but he was always there to support us. He was the first phone call if something bad ever happened. Bailed my brother out of jail one night. He came to the hospital. I broke my neck. He was the first guy to the hospital at 3 a.m. So he's my boy. But at the same time, so I'm the third. I'm James Joseph DeCicco the third. My dad is junior, and everybody wants to be like their dad. Everybody wants to make their dad proud. And yeah, it was sad. Like when he was feeling sick or depressed or whatever, it's like, I wanted to go throw the ball in the backyard with my dad some days, or I wanted him to teach me how to hunt or take me camping or things like that. And we didn't really get that all the time, but the time that we did get with him, I cherished it. I'll never forget when I was 8 years old, when I first started playing tackle football. He dropped me off at practice and he said, not only should you win every sprint, be the first person to the water cooler. Yeah. I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? And he just means when the drill is over, hustle off the field. And that's something that stuck with me. And yeah, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you do have experiences where like somebody like that, mom or dad, said something to you at an early age and it kind of defined how you approach things after that. And so I'm grateful for some of those moments that I've had with my dad back then.
So you mentioned you broke your neck. You kind of breezed over that deal.
Yeah. We're all sitting here like kind of turning our head a little bit.
Yeah, shit. So
what happened there?
Yeah, man, we're going deep on this one. I like it. So talk about pain, like emotional pain here, right? So I was the captain of my football team my senior year, heading into Colgate, starting running back. Who knew where I was going to play my senior year? But starting to get recruited by some NFL teams. Talking to the Chiefs and the Jets, and really looking forward to my best year yet. Mm-hmm. And that July, camp starts in August, right? That July, best shape of my life, ready for camp. A couple of my buddies come down to visit me at my cousin's house where I was staying for the summer, and my cousin had a go-kart. So I took him out on the go-kart, 2-seater go-kart, ended up rolled the go-kart, fell out, cracked my C7 vertebrae. And I walked away from the accident. I didn't need surgery, no paralyzed or anything like that. But it was the end of my football career. I called my coach the next day and I was like, hey man, I messed up. I broke my neck. I was cleared to play and all that. But at that point in my life, especially given my dad's situation, I was like, I got to hang up the cleats. Yeah. And Darren, you talk about pain. That was the most painful thing for me, right? Trying to lead this team from the sidelines. And you guys know when you get hurt, like college football is a business. I don't care what level it's at. Like next man up, right? You go from being the guy, the leader on the team, to people don't even recognize that you're in the room anymore. Right. So I think that was hard, but that also allowed me to grow up quite a bit as a 21-year-old kid. And again, I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing today had that not happened.
Did you go ahead?
I was just say, speaking of going deep, because I have a similar story. It was a knee injury. It wasn't a neck injury, but football was over before I was ready for it to be over. And that first 2 years, I got married that year after. Just ask my wife. I was not pleasant to be. I did not handle that situation well at all. I wasn't.
Not that he's pleasant to be around now, but
yeah, I'm still the guy in the back. Like, oh, if I hadn't hurt my knee,
relative, coach would put me in.
No, but really though, those first couple years were tough because I had done all this. And we talk about identity all the time. I'd put my whole identity into this one thing, and then it was over. And now what do I do? Was there anything like that for you, or were you able to move past that fairly quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really hang up the cleats right away because when my neck healed, so I broke it in July. I was healed by the end of September, and I was cleared to play by the end of October. And we were out of the playoffs already. So I was like, look, I'm not going to come back and risk something with a couple meaningless games left. But I had that red shirt, I had that medical red shirt. So I was applying to grad schools, got into Wake Forest. I was going to walk onto the team down there. And then what I did during the season, because I had extra time and wasn't doing the practices and the lifts and stuff, I just started networking with everybody at Colgate who I could network with. And I ended up the February of my senior year, I got a pretty good job on Wall Street. And I was like, damn, it's tough to turn down a paycheck to go play another year of college football.
Yeah.
So I did turn my extra time into productivity. Good for you. But I mean, you guys, I'm sure you feel it to this day. Like, I watch football on TV. I'm like, damn, I could still do that. Give me the ball.
No, I can't do it anymore.
No, I break on the first play, but
in my head, for sure, I could do it. For sure. So, but how was that transitioning? Because, even being a leader, even being kind of within the locker room, you're the guy that everybody kind of looks to for leadership, but then transitioning, especially into Wall Street, right? That's a whole different animal. What were your expectations going to it, and what was reality of it?
I think expectations were, it's a fast way to make money, and you look up at all these alumni, the people who are successful, the ones driving the nice cars with the big bankrolls and stuff. And you're like, oh shit, they must be happy, right? Yeah. There must be something to this real estate thing or this finance thing that people find passion in. I just never got that passion, like it wasn't, for me, it wasn't like I wasn't helping anybody, it was hard and I was working long hours, but like I wasn't really challenging myself or growing as an individual. So it was an easy decision for me to say to Jordan, like, hey man, I'm going to leave what I'm doing to come join. The money here isn't worth it for me, and I walked away from a big salary for nothing. We didn't pay ourselves at Super Coffee for the first 2.5 years. I'll send you guys a picture after this. I was literally the Bud Light guy at Baltimore Ravens games.
No way.
Yeah. It's $8 beers. I was the guy with the thing on my shoulder, but I'd make like $400 a game and that would pay for my week. That's
no, wait a minute. So I got to ask you a question. So you're walking down the stairs with this Bud Light on your shoulder, right? And you just left Wall Street, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
So how many times were you walking down this? And I got to be real, ask you a question, Jim. How many times were you walking down? They were like, you were yelling. You had to be yelling Bud Light or beer or whatever, right? How many times did you sit there and think, what the fuck am I doing?
Dude, every time. I mean, at first it was kind of superficial because I was like, oh, this is going to be a good story someday. Let me make it big. I'm going to show this picture to people. But then I was like, damn, this is humbling. What got me, I was always up in the nosebleed sections because like the dudes who have been doing it a while got the best sections. Yeah. One week I got down to a good section and I was doing my thing. I had my red shirt on with all the pins all over it, and somebody was like, yo, Bud Light. And I look and it's 3 kids that I graduated with. Oh, they weren't football players. They were like nerdy Colgate liberal arts people. Yeah. And they were like, oh, dude, this sucks for you. Like, I'm sorry that you ended up here. They gave me a great tip, but it was like a pity tip.
A pity tip.
Jeez.
Dude, our stories are very similar. Not that I've started a $500 million company.
I was going to say, oh, really? Are they big?
But up to the point where you actually started doing something, our stories are very similar. Because my first job was cleaning toilets, changing light bulbs, moving furniture. And you're right. It's like, at first, it's like, you do what you got to do. You got to pay the bills. You got to take care of the family. But that pride takes a big hit when you're sitting here scrubbing a toilet after people are like, I've got a college degree. I was supposed to be doing this. And now I'm literally scrubbing toilets. I mean, 100%. The pride takes a big hit.
There's that Kurt Warner movie that just came out, like The Underdog or whatever. Yeah. And it's when he's out and he's in the grocery store and like, they're like, oh my gosh, that's Kurt Warner, like the quarterback of what was it, Eastern Iowa or whatever. Yeah. And it was like that humbling moment. And I had the same thing. I used to sling Christmas trees. You were slinging Bud Lights. I was slinging Christmas trees, because I couldn't afford anything else. And they're like, hey, didn't didn't you play at Fresno State? Aren't you Tyler Klutz? Like, no, don't know the guy. But I get it, man. But again, it's the humility of that. It as a CEO now, right? And even through the times that you were building it, right? The humility and relatability that you have as you bring on team members, right? You can speak and you can connect and you can motivate because like, hey, listen, you may be in the warehouse right now. You may be in finance and just doing the grunt work or the accounting work. But listen, like this is building something. This is building character. This is building and keep going, keep pushing because this is not the end. Right. And you can relate to that because you've been there.
No doubt, man. And we say it all the time, like how you do anything is how you do everything. Yes. Right. So if you're slacking off on the warehouse floor, that's how you're going to be if we elevate you to a manager position or director position. And I think there's a respect that's earned when you lead by example. You know, when you do the job.
Hold on, you have to earn things these days. Is that?
Yeah, that's part of it.
What does that mean?
Is that something you guys have patented over there at Super Coffee?
Man, I'll tell you, we deal with that too sometimes. But no, in all seriousness, it goes back to being the first person to the water cooler. You know, like we'll never ask our team to do something that we don't do. And my brothers and I, you'll see us out there stocking shelves every day. You know, we were just talking about Kroger up in Dallas. Those are some of our best displays in the country. And we built some of them with our teammates, you know.
They are damn good displays.
That just goes back to the respect piece, you know, because like this is our first time doing it too. You know,
I want to take a quick break and thank our partners, Sleep Number, and highlight a couple of things they're doing. Guys, these Sleep Number beds are unreal. The technology that they've created, the feedback that it gives you on your sleep. I've got the app opened up right here. They tell you things like your heart rate variability, your breathing rate, all these type metrics and feedback to give you so that you can improve your quality of sleep. They're all over the place. You can go and check yourself out, a Sleep Number store, wherever you live. Go to sleepnumber.com as well. They've got great resources on there. We just talked about this not too long ago. They have a whole blog section, all these articles, things that you can improve your health. Sleep Number is definitely changing the game when it comes to bedding. So get yourself to Sleep Number, get yourself to sleepnumber.com and check them out. Now back to the episode.
So let's go back a little bit because I want to talk about, you know, your time on Wall Street and you get the call. Your brother calls you. Tell us that story and how, you know, what your thoughts were as far as making that jump.
Yeah. So he actually sent me a letter and just explaining the opportunity and why this was so special to him and important to him. And I told you, he wanted to be the next Steve Nash and he was an obsessive personality, right? Like Jordan he would shoot free throws for hours. And once I saw that obsession shift from basketball to entrepreneurship, I was like, dang, there's no convincing him otherwise. So I want to be supportive of this. I knew nothing about coffee. I didn't think it was a good idea. You know, the product tasted good. And back then, this is years after like Vitamin Water sold to Coke for $4 billion, right? So like there were unicorn examples of like, if you do this right, you can make a lot of money. That's not why we do this. You know, like we would have quit a long time ago if it was just for that. But this idea of removing sugar from people's diets, creating positive energy, you know, helping people live a healthier lifestyle is motivating. Being the underdog again is motivating. You know, odds are always against us. Like this isn't supposed to work. You know, so many beverage brands start every year and fail. So that drives me too. And with my brothers, is like that challenge. Every day there was a new problem to solve. There still is. And I liked that, man. It was always something new. No 2 days are the same for me. Like I could never be an accountant or something where I had to do the same thing every day. So I think that piece of my personality is a good fit for what we do here too.
So you're obviously passionate about the product, right? It adds value to people. It helps people become healthier, aware. But is it, and you just mentioned it, right? Is it the challenge that excites you more, or is it a product that excites you more?
I think the challenge drives me in anything, right? Like if somebody's like, hey, go climb that mountain, I bet you can't do it in 30 minutes, right? Like I like that kind of thing. But what I'm passionate about is sort of changing the way that people consume their food and drinks, right? Like nobody should ever get 45 grams of sugar in one beverage, whether it's a Coca-Cola or a Starbucks Frappuccino. So what we unlocked pretty early on is like, this thing has to taste good. You know, we're not going to win this battle if we're trying to educate people on what medium chain triglycerides are, right? And asking them to pinch their nose and drink a healthy shot or something like that. So it tastes good. It's good for people. And I think that if we can be at the forefront of this movement, it's going to create a lot of change across the industry, not just with coffee.
Yeah.
You know, I keep on going back. I'm hearing your story and I keep on going back to, you know, you were never a CEO. This is and I guess I want to go back because there's so many entrepreneurs who listen to our show here, but let's go back to day one. Your brother calls you, you go through that process. You say, yeah, I'm going to join. What's the coffee like then? Is the name Super Coffee? Has your brother Jordan already named it Super Coffee? Or do you guys have name iterations you have to go through?
Yeah. So we've evolved. I mean, we still evolve to this day. The labeling, the packaging, the formula always improves. So back then, I think our first product had like 6 grams of sugar in it from agave, something like that. So we were low sugar. It always had protein, always had MCT oil, and always had more caffeine than a regular coffee. But it was Suniva. The name of the brand was Suniva, and it means gift from the sun. Jordan was pretty influenced back then by Honest Tea. A guy named Seth Golden started Honest Tea, sold it to Coca-Cola. And Seth wrote a book called Mission in a Bottle. And he built his brand at Whole Foods. It's a really natural thing, low sugar compared to like a Lipton or a Snapple, for instance. So we kind of went that natural route, you know, more of like a Whole Foods farmers market type vibe. So Suniva kind of fit the bill. But we always described it as Suniva Super Coffee, right? Like, what is Suniva? Suniva is a super coffee. You know, it's coffee plus, it's enhanced coffee. So I think 2018, after we went on Shark Tank early 2018, which we could talk about. After that, we dropped the Suniva and really became known as Super Coffee. The other thing about Super Coffee that's interesting for entrepreneurs is you can't own the word super and you can't own the word coffee, right? They're not distinct, and you can't put them together and own them either. So it wasn't until 2018 where we finally had enough sales, enough marketing dollars spent, enough brand awareness that those two words became distinct and unique to us. So we acquired that trademark in I think year 3 or 4. And that's what allowed us to go all in with that name.
Yeah. Tell us about those early years. This is a pretty interesting story about how you guys were actually making the actual product, the actual coffee. This is a pretty interesting story. Tell us about that.
So in the food and beverage industry, like you can't sell to stores unless you have a distributor, and a distributor doesn't carry you unless you have stores. And without stores, you can't really produce out of a contract manufacturing facility either, because they have minimums, you know. So like, if we have no place to sell this stuff, why would we produce 100,000 cases, right? Like we couldn't do it that way. So we said, you know what, we're going to make the stuff ourselves and we're going to be our distributor. That way we don't have to worry about minimums. We can do it one store at a time. So we found a Domino sugar factory in Baltimore, Maryland, that the guy had an old bottling line in the back. And it was like a 100-gallon kettle. He's like, look, fellas, my last shift ends at 8 p.m. and my first shift gets in the morning at 6 a.m. As long as you're in after 8 and out before 6 and you clean up my place, you can use this. Like, just pay me $100 or whatever it is. So we would produce the product in a 100-gallon kettle overnight, we'd fill it in the bottles. And then the next morning we would sort of rock, paper, scissors, shoot to see who would deliver that batch to the grocery stores. And in that first year, I think we built it up to like 20 stores from DC to Baltimore. Wow. And we'd rotate every day who was making the deliveries, printing out the invoices on shelves, or not shelf space, on QuickBooks. You know, like we all kind of just stepped up and did the work. And then on the weekends, we'd go into those stores and we'd pour samples, you know, and that's what it was like, control what you can control. If we're only going to be in one store, we're going to support the hell out of that store until we're the best selling coffee in that damn store.
Yeah. See, I love, so question, back to the early days, there's no playbook, right? There's no like, hey, here's how to be a CEO. Here's how to be, you know, a CFO. Here's how to be a COO. Like, so how did you learn that? Was it just, hey, the three of us, we're figuring this out, and then we're just kind of creating this playbook as we go?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when I was 22, 23, I struggled with this because, like, I think we all have expectations of what it means to be a CEO, or what a CEO is like, you know, and I was trying to be that. I used to wear like a button down and a tie and shit. And I was like, am I doing this right? You know, am I being a CEO? And meanwhile, to your point, there is no playbook. The right way is the way that works. And the way that worked for us was just being authentic. You know, it comes back to mom's lesson of just work hard and be nice to people. That's table stakes. If you do those two things, chances are the ball is going to bounce in your favor. And then really just putting in that time and effort, and you evolve. I think that the advice I would give myself back then is, like, we would look up to guys like Seth Goldman and other founders and entrepreneurs and be like, wow, those dudes are untouchable. You know, they have something that we don't have to do what they've achieved and build what they've built. Like, we're not capable of that, right? They're special. Meanwhile, today, like, our business is 3 times the size Honest Tea ever got to be. And it's humbling, but 2, my advice to 22-year-old self is like, dude, you got this. You know, like, you're the guy to do this, right? The people that you look up to were in your seat. So I think unchecked expectations can be pretty dangerous. So I think believing in yourself at an early days and then putting in the work to evolve is critical.
And those are some tough dynamics as well, because you're working with 2 of your brothers.
Yeah.
And it's hard. I mean, trust me, I've seen all the stories, including self. There's no way I could work with my 2 brothers. Like, no way in hell. Specifically with egos involved. So Jordan creates the brand. He asks you to come on to be the CEO. There's got to be a shitload of humility in Jordan to make that, basically defer to you to run this company.
Yeah. So it wasn't always that way. When I first started, Jordan was the CEO, and after year 1, our first year was Jake's senior year at Georgetown. He graduated in May. So we got Jake full-time in May of year 1. And Jake, Jordan, and I are running the business. Jordan's head coach at Philly U calls him. He's like, hey, DeCicco, man, I need a point guard. I know you just sat this last season out, but like, can you come back? And so we sent Jordan back to school. And at that point, we sort of made the call. We're like, look, we can't have our CEO playing a full-time student athlete too. So that's kind of when I stepped up, really from an investor relations perspective, just to give our investors confidence that we're all in, we're focused on this thing. And Jordan balled out that year. It was awesome, man. Like, he averaged 30 points a game. He was making deliveries on the weekend. So that was
you had the formula dialed in by then, though. That's probably why. Good little pregame drink.
Yeah. So I always joke that even though the 3 of us started this at the same time, I'm the only guy that's been here full time for the last 6 years. Because Jake was that year 1.
The OG.
Yeah, exactly. Let the record show it. But no, Darren, to your point, like, ego and communication is key, right? Because if I see you doing something wrong and you're my brother, I'd be like, Jake, dude, you're 5 minutes late to that meeting. As little kids, he'd be like, fuck you, don't tell me what to do. You know?
Yeah.
But now he's like, all right, I hear you. Like, hearing that feedback is pissing me off, but you're giving me that feedback because you want me to be better. You want this company to be better. So you kind of got to check your ego at the door. And I think the benefit you get from 3 brothers is that built-in trust. You know, like, we could be split up, California, New York, Austin, all doing different things, but we know we're grinding towards the same goal. But that constant communication is key. And now that we're in Austin, we get breakfast every Monday morning at 7 a.m.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
Question. So as you're growing, you're obviously going through growing pains. You've got challenges that present themselves. You may have customers that aren't happy. How did you guys commit to solving problems, whether it's with a customer, like an end user, or it's a distributor? What is your mindset in solving those problems?
Yeah. So we don't really have a framework for it. It's sort of, we address them as they come, and every day there's a new fire drill, whether somebody gets shorted product. Just this past week, we have an exclusive distributor in New York City, which means that they're the only person allowed to distribute our product anywhere in New York City. We sold our product into Sam's Club, showed up in 2 Sam's Clubs in New York City, and our distributor called us heated. He's like, well, you guys are violating my agreement. How is this product at Sam's Club? How did this get there? And that was a little bit of a fire drill. So we sent in one of our guys, and they picked it up, and we addressed it. But we really take it as it comes. And I think our philosophy is like, leave it better than you found it. If somebody's unhappy, obviously you can't really bend or break for everybody who has a complaint or an opinion. But customer service is one of our highest priorities.
Right. God, I got to keep, there's so much out here, man, because I got to go back. Just running a business. I have a little software company. So I'm listening to your story, and I want to know one thing about the money raise. Was the money raise a friends and family first money raise that you went through?
Yeah. Yes. So we didn't come from money, so we didn't really have a network of investors. And mom and dad couldn't invest in the business. Our mom worked at the Y, and our dad was like a construction guy. And with that, like, our two aunts, they never had any kids. So they put in 30 grand in year one.
Mm-hmm.
And that was enough for us to get the labels, to get the delivery van and really go build out that selling story in one store and then 2 stores and then 3 stores. Once that 30 grand ran out, we were like, hey, we're the best selling bottle of coffee in these 3 stores, you know? And that's what, that's how the pitch evolved. It was like, with your money, we could take what we're doing in these 3 stores and do it in 30 stores, in 300 stores, 3,000 stores. So for the first 4 years, we just raised a series of convertible notes, you know, nothing really formal. Like every time we'd run out of cash, we'd go raise 100 grand or 500 grand, all from people who we'd meet along the way. And then it wasn't until the end of 2018 where we raised our first institutional round. We brought on a venture VC fund called Anthos Capital. They put in $15 million at like a $50 million valuation. And that was the first cash we needed to really build out the team and national distribution.
Right.
So, okay. So you said that was 18, and then you said Shark Tank also happened in 18. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So Shark Tank happened in February of 18.
Okay.
And we went on that show. We were asking for $1 million for 10% of the business, right? So $10 million valuation. We didn't even get an offer from any of the sharks. You know, they were like, look, the product doesn't taste great. You guys are pretty small. It's super expensive to win in beverage. Like, we're not interested in this. I mean, they were very complimentary and proud of like who the effort we were putting forth. But then 8 months later, we go and raise 15 million at a 50 million valuation. So, I mean, it's a good story.
Wait a minute. You raised 15 off a $50 million valuation?
Yeah, the same year.
Holy
Darren, you're going to have to take over the interview because he's starting to lose me on this other business talk. You two go.
No, I just, telling you, man, your story, because the one thing about starting a business is you have to have people that believe in you. Like, you have to create the story. You're telling a story. And those that are taking that risk are saying, okay, I'm believing your story. You have potential to go X, Y, and Z. So, maybe a lot of our listeners probably don't know what it feels like to they see the finished product, but all the sleepless nights because you're dealing with other people's money.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's it, man. And it started with Jordan's vision, like the same letter that he wrote me saying how big this could be and how big our impact could be and how bad Starbucks was and all this, like that. For the first 5 years, that was still the pitch, because we didn't have the sales or the history. Like, we were a fraction of bottled coffee in the US. So we were getting people to believe in what this could have been. And I think that's every entrepreneur's job. And honestly, it's the sad thing is, like, these last couple of years, you see people who are pretty persuasive and sell their vision and raise hundreds of millions of dollars and then go out of business pretty quick,
Yeah.
So you got to be careful and you got to back it up. And now today we're finally at a place where we got the sales, we got the momentum.
But that fundraising tour, right? Because if you're going out and raising institutional money, it's not like, hey, first one we hit, we land.
Right.
But that's got to be, and I haven't been through it. I've been through much smaller scales of it, but it's like, that's got to be hard, right? Trying to convince people that you're good enough. I mean, yeah. So walk us through kind of that mindset as you're going into these meetings, right? I'm sure you're going to some in Manhattan and you're going, these big institutional firms that are grilling you on the fine details and then are just judging you the entire time. What is that mindset going into those?
Totally. And so for the first year, I'd reach out to the big institutional firms, the angel funds, the VC funds, all that. And what I learned throughout that year is that they're too critical of a business that doesn't have good numbers, like they have certain criteria for, I don't know, minimum revenue or gross margin profiles, things like that. We didn't have any of that, So I was like, screw this. We're not going to go to the standard food and beverage investors. I called it friends, family, and fools. Anybody who was willing to write a check for us. The name of the game back then was just make it to the next milestone. If we could get money from real estate guys or lawyers or rich kids who we played football with, that's the types of people that we would raise from. And that's what enabled us to go get that sales data to finally warrant real conversations with the VCs. But yeah, Tyler, to your point, man, I think 1 out of every 100 conversations I had led to a second call or next steps.
Wow.
Yeah, man, that's tough because like you said, you've got to find the people that can make a decision that that there's no formula for, right? Because all these VCs, private equity groups, right? It's like, okay, hey, what's revenue? What's the EBITDA? What's that? Okay, let me see this. Okay, does it fit? No, it doesn't fit. We'll move on. And they're moving on to the next deal. But you've got to go find somebody, convince somebody that's like, I believe in the mission and I believe in the vision. And I believe mostly, and you listen to the investors that are successful, is I believe in the people.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask you is how dialed in was y'all's mission at the time? Because I got to imagine that's what separates you from all these pieces of paper is your mission.
Yeah. Yeah. And the mission, like the fun, like philosophical mission is to mass produce positive energy. But when you break that down, what does that mean? Right. Like the elephant in the room is Starbucks Frappuccino doing over $3 billion a year now. If we could continue to chip away at their revenue and be the healthy alternative on the shelf to where every Frappuccino is sold, that's a big opportunity. You know, that's a big opportunity. And when you break it down, it's like, hey, we're doing it in 30 stores right now, 300 by the end of the year, 3,000 next year. And you go out and achieve those milestones that you tell people, that story becomes a lot more believable. It's like, wow, they're sort of doing what they said they're going to do. And granted, it was still very small scale back then. But yeah, they believed in the vision and they believed in our hustle. You know, like they didn't care if we were selling coffee or soap. You know, they were like, these guys are going to figure it out. And that was probably some stubborn, competitive fuel that we brought to every meeting. But yeah, man, I think that the interesting thing is like over the last 6 years, we've raised $150 million. And my brothers and I, we each own about 5% of the company. You know, we control 3 out of 5 board seats, but when you bring investors in to grow your business, you're giving up a lot, you know, and granted, I mean, look, it's 5% of a very large number. So it's life-changing money and we're grateful for it. But I think there are concessions you have to make along the way if you want to grow fast.
You want to scale fast. That's right. That's right. So,
I was just saying, these guys are more business minded, so they're going to keep peppering you with business questions. I'm more fascinated by the mentality at this time. Do you look at any times now that you went through back then and were you able to, I guess the best way to ask is, were there any times that you look back on and you think, man, this really sucks, but you're so glad that you went through that? I mean, can you think of any scenarios where when you were going through it, it was horrible, but now looking back, it's like, that's what built us?
Yeah, I think when we used to make the deliveries, that was tough because it's super manual labor. You know, you got to go find the right people in the store to get the invoices signed and stock the product on the shelf. Like putting 12 bottles of this stuff on the shelf takes a few minutes, you know, to organize it and categorize it. And when you're dropping off hundreds of bottles a day, like it's a long day and it's exhausting. But what we learned was how to win within the walls of a grocery store, you know, because most brands, they don't do that. They don't touch their products. They give it to a distributor and hope the distributor gets it on the shelf. For us, I mean, you can walk into any Kroger in Dallas, you're going to see floor displays, you're going to see refrigerators, you're going to see television commercials playing our Shark Tank videos, you know, like that's how you disrupt that point of purchase. And we wouldn't have learned that had we not been so intimately involved with building the brand.
That's a great point.
All right, I want to take a quick minute to talk about our partner, Choctaw Casino and Resort. We are really, really humbled and grateful to be a partner for them. If you've listened to the show for any amount of time, you've heard how great the resort is there, how great the casino is, the new expansion. They've doubled in size, 3,000 new slots. They've got unbelievable sports bar. They've got unbelievable restaurants, unbelievable movie theaters, arcades for kids. It is endless, the things that they've not only improved but added. But it's just the experience that they provide is second to none. Choctaw Nation has done an incredible job with the community, with philanthropy, with support. They have just done incredible things. So we are extremely humbled and grateful to partner with Choctaw Casino and Resort. Make sure, I know you know it, it's just a short drive up 75. Go check them out. And now back to the episode. That's great. So when you scaled, when you got that first institutional investment, and you're like, okay, hey, we're starting our distribution national. That takes people. So how has it been growing the company, finding the right type of people to bring in and execute your mission?
Yeah, so we're still going through these evolutions today. And one thing I'll say, sort of looking back on the business, like we've been through 3 CFOs so far, and not because it's a cursed position, but like the guy who took us from 1 million in sales to 5 million wasn't the right person to take us from 5 million to 50 million, you know, and the person who took us from 50 to 100 wasn't the right person to take us from 100 to 500. So I think I don't want to say using people as a means to an end, but sometimes the business grows faster than some of the individuals within it. In the early days, like all we knew about our business was that it was difficult and you needed to hang in there. You needed to be resilient, and who better to handle those three things than athletes. So we did hire some of our teammates. We did hire people who were tough, people who showed initiative. Our first employee, I'll never forget it. This is a good story. Reached out to us. It was just me and my brothers working down in DC. And he was like, hey, I read some articles about you guys. I love what you're doing. I work at a government agency. I'm not happy here. I want to come help you build this mission. And I was like, look, man, I don't know what skills you need. I don't know what questions to ask you. Like, I've never done this before. All I know is this shit's really hard. And if you want to work with us, meet me at this trail in the woods at 6 a.m. on Saturday morning. And Buddy showed up. He showed up, and I was like, all right, follow me. I just ran through the trees. We were jumping logs and running through sticks. We were covered in mud, rolling ankles and shit. And he didn't quit. You know, all I wanted to see was like, and we were chatting the whole time. I was getting to know him, but like, I wanted to see, like, is he going to complain? Is he going to back out? Is he going to take a break? And like, this dude was hurting. I was like, you got the job, man. And to this day, 4.5 years later, he's still with us. He's almost at the VP level now.
That is a great story.
Darren, you would have never got my black ass out there in the woods running at 6 a.m.
In the woods? Is the sun in the woods? I've seen horror movies about this. I ain't stupid.
I don't like
rolling ankles. My ass. No, weed.
I don't like coffee that much anyway. I was gonna say, Darren, this is a new interview tactic.
That is, man. We gotta start doing this. We gotta start doing this.
No, but you take people to the inner city and say, you survive a night, you can work.
I'm not trying to.
Man, I see. Yeah, I love that. I love the mindset of it. And the question, because that's something that we've all talked about, right? As athletes transition, you know, you hear these companies say, yeah, athletes are the best because they're hardworking, they're dedicated. But that's not the case across the board, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, athletes are used to following a playbook, following a schedule, being told where to go, how to do it, and then, okay, yeah, I'll do it. But the challenge is a lot of these guys are just really talented and can do it with very little effort, right? So how has it been in your experience? You mentioned one athlete that's been great, but how has your experience been hiring athletes within your company?
It's been good. It's been good. And the first couple of years, it was just teammates sort of like wheeling and dealing, trying to figure out how to do this stuff, working hard, sleeping in their cars, you know, putting in the hours. And that was fun, man. You know, these were some of our best friends from college. And then come 2018, we look around, we're 15 people, and we're like, oh shit, we all kind of look alike, you know, a bunch of white dudes, a bunch of athletes. Yeah. And we're like, we gotta get ahead of this because we're about to raise some money and scale this business. So we hired one of my philosophy professors from Colgate to come in and help us set some ethical foundation for scaling. And from that point on, we began to diversify, not to check the numbers or hit the boxes, but to get that broader group of people into the organization. And I'm sure you guys remember from your time as student athletes, the interesting thing is, like, there's always a rift between people who don't play sports and people who are just there for school. You know, and now today, I mean, we have a healthy mix of both of those things. So being cognizant not to just beat people up, like beat the drum, pat people on the back in a very, like, I don't know, locker room kind of way, and make sure everybody feels included. So that's been an interesting part of the evolution as well. But athletes have been great. And I think building the team to sort of have these diverse backgrounds has been awesome too. We still got a lot of work to do. But for the most part, the foundation has been laid.
So Jimmy, where have you seen your growth personally in the time that you started, and came on to Super Coffee? Personally, what has been your growth pattern? Yeah,
I think, less anxious, you know, more confident in myself. When bad things happen, I don't get as stressed as I usually do. It's like such is life. And I think with that comes just this resolute, I don't know, confidence in solving problems, right? Mm-hmm. Like, whereas some people today on the team, something bad happens, they're like, Jim, oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. Like, this business is tanked. And I'm like, all right, let's calm down. Let's see what the answer is here. I think one thing we learned is, like, leaders never get stuck. You know, there's never a situation where we can't have an answer. There's always a path forward. And if it's not obvious in the beginning, that means you just got to look a little bit different to get there. So I think having that confidence to find a solution gives me this nice sense of like calmness that no matter what, we'll be all right moving forward. I'm not sure how we're going to get forward, but we're going to get forward. It wasn't always that way. I used to be pretty like pessimistic or doom and gloom. Like if this doesn't happen, then we're screwed. But what we've learned is like, there's always a way forward.
That's awesome.
What about the last couple of years? The pandemic has presented challenges for for certain companies, supply chain issues, things like that. When everything went down in 2020, did that impact you guys at all? Did you how did that work? How did you guys adjust to that?
Yeah, so our industry was not helped by the pandemic. Some industries benefited, and I think the health trends definitely helped. People were open to trying healthier things, but people just weren't going to grocery stores, and they certainly weren't going to gas stations. They stopped commuting. The grab and go business really took a hit. So up until that March, we had this nice spike, this great momentum. Our bottled coffee season is really from May through September, so we were building that up. And then end of March, early April, when the economy shut down, we saw a downtick in sales that didn't get picked back up again until August. So I say the pandemic probably set us back a full 12 months. Like our 2021 numbers were what we should have done in 2020. And up until 2020, before the pandemic, it was kind of the Wild West. My brothers were just out there making plays. We were hiring good people. We were selling product into good accounts. We were launching new products. And we were just focused on growth, and the story to investors was just growth. And now, because of supply chain constraints and inflation and increased costs, it's like, we got to build a good business, right? It's not all about growth. So I think my professional development has really accelerated over the last couple of years, focused on things like gross margin improvements and trade spend and different accounting treatments. Like when we closed our Series C last summer, we raised $100 million. And the Series C investor said, look, I love you guys. I love your brand, but your accounting and your processes and your operations looks like a Series A company. You guys are a couple of years behind here. The good news is like the brand and the revenue and the repeat purchases, that's the hard part. You can fix the accounting stuff. So that's really what I've been focused on probably the last 9 months is fixing the back end systems with our team.
That's great. So you talked about professional development. Along the way, you figured out a lot on your own. As three brothers, you guys have figured out a lot, but what mentors have poured into you? Not what, but what does a mentor look like for you? And has that been a big part of your growth and leaning on, individuals that have been through something similar or can teach you something? Yeah.
I think those last two things you said, something similar can teach you something, really opened up our whole world of mentors. Like the first guy I used to call when I had issues with employees or recruiting was my head football coach at college. I was like, coach, like we got this one bad egg. Like, how do you deal with a player or a teammate who isn't drinking the Kool-Aid, right? Or is challenging the culture, So leaning on coaches and people who I looked up to as role models, not necessarily beverage executives or business professionals, things like that, was super helpful. And that's certainly evolved. We've gotten to know different investors, different athletes, different CEOs over the years. Which has been great. Consistently on a weekly basis, I see a therapist every week, once a week on Monday, and then my brothers and I all share the same executive coach. So I think being willing to put in that work to grow is awesome. It's not awesome; it's essential to us. And because the thing is, like, we know that we don't have all the answers, and we have to learn. I think that curiosity has been pivotal. But Darren, you started it when we were talking about my dad earlier. It's like, the four of us are big, tough dudes. We don't really talk about emotions. We don't really talk about what we're scared about or what we're worried about or things like that. And I found that the more I make myself vulnerable and admit my fears or admit that I know what I don't know, it really unlocks growth and potential and learning.
Right.
Oh,
man, we know we only got a couple minutes left here. As you look towards unless you guys got,
go ahead.
I'm thinking as you look towards the future, and continuing the growth, because you said it earlier, the money's great, but it's not, you would have quit a long time ago if it was just about the money. So where are you guys headed going forward? How are you going to continue to change the industry?
Yeah, so we're trying to bring other brands along with us now too. I think that everybody gets tunnel vision on what they're trying to build, and it's us versus the world or them versus the world, things like that. And just last week, we were in Anaheim for it's called Natural Products Expo West. It's the biggest food show in the natural products industry. 3,000 brands there, 75,000 people walking the floor. you look around and there's super coffee is the healthy alternative to Starbucks, right? Zero sugar, low calorie. You got healthy sugar-free cereals. You got sugar-free sodas. You got healthy breads. All of these categories. So what we started, Super Coffee started this coalition earlier this year. It's called ACEs, the Alliance to Control Excessive Sugar. And we just teamed up with all of these other brands who are doing better for you in a flavorful way in high sugar categories. And for us, we measure our impact by pounds of sugar removed from America's diet. So just this year, we eclipsed 10 million pounds of sugar, assuming that for every super coffee drank, that's one less Starbucks Frappuccino. Over the last 6 years, we've removed 10 million pounds of sugar from America's diet. And we think that's good. We think that battles metabolic disease and all that. So what we did was we teamed up with other brands on similar missions. And now that 10 million is now 100 million, right? And by 2025, we want to be 1 billion pounds of sugar removed. So it's gotten greater than just us, which is really cool. And people who are like, kind of had that tunnel vision are now like, damn, we're in this together. You know, it's us versus the big guys.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Man, there we go.
How do you find that ACEs? Because I'm trying to, I want to, because as a family, we're cutting out sugar as best we can. Obviously, it's really hard to eliminate total, but the ACEs, is there a way to find all those companies involved in it?
Yeah. So we got a website just called sweetaces.org.
Sweet Aces, like sweetasses.com.
Yeah. Sweet Aces.
Just sweet ass.
See, there you go.
Hey, I didn't even catch that initially.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Darren says it to me all the time, so it's always in the back of my head.
Jimmy, we're sorry.
Tyler, with you, sweet ass.
Dude's trying to save America, and you're talking about asses over there.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sweetaces.com.
Continue.
Yeah, don't type in sweetasses.com.
At least not on a work computer.
Yeah.
But to Tyler's question, if we go to that website, what can we find there on that website?
So it's the other brands that are involved, and the whole point of ACEs is to make healthy food accessible. So it's in a subtle way, right? Like let's say there's somebody in your life who's unhealthy, overweight. It's tough to approach that person and say, "Hey, mom, hey, dad, like I think you should lose weight, and here's a way to a healthier lifestyle." At ACEs, you could put in that person's information or your information if you want to, and we send you a coupon booklet that has free access or discounted access to all of our products. So it's like, once you try this, you're not going to want to eat that Cinnamon Toast Crunch that you wanted, or you're not going to need that 50 grams of sugar in your Frappuccino, or you're going to kick that soda habit. So the whole idea is making it accessible and putting it in people's hands.
See, I think it's super helpful because you see all this stuff come through like on Instagram ads and stuff like that. And you're like, okay, hey, what products really can I trust that really truly are like good quality products that are, you know, like you said, eliminating like real sugars? Because it's hard to trust sometimes because there's so much in your face, but this sounds like an awesome resource.
And not only that, but you know, look, Jimmy, you guys are leading this coalition, man. You put this thing together, and it's a movement, man. And that's what you're trying to create. You're trying to create a community of understanding of what's the better option. And I think we look at our society today, and I know Ben has been talking about this for a long time. You know, we're the most obese nation in the world, and we have to figure out ways to solve the problem, and you guys are solving that problem, man. So appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah,
thank you, man. No, there's a lot of good people out there pursuing similar missions, and again, I think the key is making it accessible, making it available. You know, we're in Kroger, we're in Walmart, we're in the places where America shops, but also making it as flavorful as the favorite things that they're currently drinking. Because again, it's not our job to educate consumers on the benefits of a ketogenic diet or MCT oil or anything. It's like, hey, this thing tastes like your Starbucks Frappuccino and there's zero sugar in it. You know, give it a try.
Simple as that.
Oh, I love it.
Man, well, we've opened it up. I was excited. I'm always intrigued to talk to the people that create the brands that we all love. And you guys are definitely doing that. You mentioned it a second ago, but where can people find Super Coffee? You said Kroger, you said Target. What about gas stations, you know, quick convenience stores, things like that? Where can people find you guys?
Yeah, man, I appreciate the plug. We're nationwide in Walmart and Target, 7-Eleven, CVS, you know, depending on where you live. We're in places like Circle K and Quick Trip as well. But we got a long way to go yet. Products are available on Amazon as well too. So check us out. And if you got any feedback, if you want to connect with me and my brothers, we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn. That's how Darren found us.
That's right.
Good find, man.
Yeah,
good find.
man. I'm good at this thing now. What the hell I'm doing.
Awesome,
Jimmy,
man.
man, we appreciate you, man. Appreciate the time, appreciate the insight. And then, you know, you've got fans over here. So any way we can help support, push anything out, man, we appreciate. We're all in on Super Coffee. This is honestly, for those of you, like, I just drank it while we're doing this interview, and literally when you talk about like competing with Starbucks Frappuccino, like it doesn't though, like it doesn't, like it's better, like it doesn't have that burnt bean taste, right? It's like, it's legitimate. And it is great. And we're gonna send you something when we get offline here. We're gonna send you a new ad that you can push through because we got it. We got it.
It's all three of us shirtless, so hopefully sex sells.
Darren talking about sweet asses or something like that.
Appreciate your time so much, man.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you, guys. This was awesome. I'll hit you up next time I'm in Dallas. We can smash a workout.
Yes, sir. Come on.